Thank you for your attention in this inaugural virtual workshop that we're doing. I know that you've had a lot of information, thrown at you in terms of what IRT is and the left and right lateral limits and the 101 kind of overview briefs. So the purpose of this brief is just for us to talk through a couple Marine Corps / Greenside Navy specifics on our participation in the program and how we can better serve you as our participants in IRT. So just a little bit of a deeper dive on what IRT can do for you. As you know, since you're here, you've most likely signed up to support a project in FY21, and or you've supported a project in the past. But we just wanted to highlight perhaps some other training opportunities and other aspects of the program that you might not be aware of that will hopefully result in a deeper understanding on your part on what IRT can do for you, and maybe you'll see some more opportunities for you and your folks to get good training out of it. So again, you've heard this already, but it provides realistic, practical training at little to no cost to you. So Staff Sergeant Fleischman here in a few minutes is going to get into a lot more detail on the training value, but suffice to say that it is valuable training for a lot of reasons. Number one, you're working with a community partner, and that in and of itself is valuable training. Particularly, we've gotten feedback from the active duty side. An engineering unit did a project for us about a year ago, and one of the things that they highlighted in their after action was the fact that they had to work with not just the community partner, but they had to contract for services locally and deal with a lot of civilians and doing their training. That was a huge value add for them because I guess they're accustomed to training, on large military installations and kind of being in the military bubble. And that was a good experience for them because when they go down range, oftentimes they are dealing with a lot more civilians than they're accustomed to. So I think the community partner aspect of it is valuable. And then the joint aspect of it is valuable, as you've probably seen if you've supported an IRT in the past. It's real world training. It produces tangible results. You're building bridges, redoing roads, standing up actual COCs, treating patients, and on top of that, you're not dealing with the constraints that you would perhaps deal with if you're operating again, on a military installation. I've spoken to the inter-service aspect of it. A lot of times these are austere conditions. They're in rural areas, particularly if you're doing a medical project. And a lot of times it's a lot of moving parts because it's multiple clinic sites, which is also really good, realistic training for when you go downrange. And then it can be very high visibility. We have DV days as part of these training evolutions, which you might not be too excited about, and we're frankly not all that excited about. However, I can tell you that our command deck does enjoy going to visit these projects when they can, and they really think it's important when elected officials and other military leaders and community leaders also visit these projects and provides us with the opportunity to highlight the value of the training, but also what we can do and what we can bring to the table as MARFA and as a Marine Corps. So the DV days, it's a little bit of a necessary evil, but it's also really value added in and of itself. And then again, this last point, the flexibility piece, Staff Sergeant Fleischman will elaborate on, but really you have a lot of autonomy as a military unit participating in one of these projects to determine what it is that you are going to do. Just because a community is asking for A through Z doesn't mean that you're required to provide that. You have the flexibility to kind of decide of the scope of work that they're requesting, where's the training value for you, and what exactly are you going to do with this project. And also, communities might not be asking for certain things that also provide training opportunities on top of, kind of just the medical, dental, engineering kind of crux of the project itself. There's a lot of tangential services, comm, motor T, food services, and the like that all these projects need that provide additional training opportunities. So with apologies to Staff Sergeant Fleischman for stealing a little bit of his thunder there, he'll elaborate on that here in a minute. So next slide. Okay, so I mentioned a second ago that it's low cost to you, and that's because, as you know, when you submit a military application to support an IRT project, you can request funding from OSD. But we have seen in the past that our folks have not necessarily been had as much visibility as we would like them to have in terms of how that funding works and what might be available to you and how to access that funding so that you don't have to come out of pocket with unit funds to do various things in support of IRT projects. So kind of 10,000 foot level view, those are the different appropriations that we typically deal with. 1106, 1107. 1108 is reserve participation, so your AT dollars. Normally when you go on ADOS, you're using 1108 funds. And the IRT is essentially a separate appropriation. It's 0100 funding. It also covers JCS level exercises, but it covers civil military projects, of which the IRT program is a part. So what happens when you request IRT funding is, actually go ahead to the next slide, Staff Sergeant. This is a little bit more detail. So when you request funding, this might look somewhat familiar if you filled out a military application, but you request a certain amount of O&M and a certain amount of P&A. And so to give you a little bit of a detail on how the funding flows. So the IRT O&M money, that is 0100 money that comes directly to us from OSD. And then the P&A essentially gets reprogrammed from 0100 money into 1108 money. So that is reserve money that funds reserve participation. So there's two funding flows, in other words, O&M and P&A. And O&M will cover certain things like TOT, if you wanted to transport whatever organic equipment you have that you want to use when you support a project. IRT money will cover that. If you decide to rent the equipment instead, or do a combination of TOT of your own equipment and renting equipment, and you have to enter into a contract with local vendors and go through the RCO and sort of our own MARFARES internal processes. But IRT money will cover that. So you would not have to come out of pocket for that. And then travel for full-time personnel. So your I&I staff that come to the planning meetings, planning conferences, and the actual project execution, IRT money will cover that. And then on the P&A side, it covers our salary, my salary, Staff Sergeant Fleischman's salary as your program managers. If you are doing a project, this typically happens more with the engineering projects that are longer in duration, where you have most of your guys participating they're doing their AT, so they're funded with your unit's AT pot of money. However, you need leadership and duration personnel that are on deck the whole time. And what we've typically done is we've put those folks on ADOS, and that IRT money will cover that as well. So if you need to put, an OIC and a staff NCOIC on ADOS for a month, 2 months, 3 months, that's part of the request, and that's part of the funding that we get from the IRT OSD office. And then reserve personnel, travel and attendance at planning conferences. Again, same concepts. If you wanted to send, 2 or 3 of your drilling reservists to an initial planning conference, for example, actually, that's not a good example because usually the money doesn't come in at that point. Let's say main planning conference. You wanted to put your guys on ADOS for 4 days to attend that conference. Again, IRT money will cover that. So that's kind of the 1,000 foot level view of how funding works. I'm sure you will probably have questions of the mechanics of how it works and how you access it, which we're happy to answer. But it basically starts with the T3 process. So anytime you are, your personnel are traveling, or you need to TOT something, or some action needs to happen. I'm assuming you have some familiarity with the T3 tool, but it all starts on with the T3 request. And then there's a certain funding code on that request that then triggers other actions. I'm not going to go into a terrible amount of detail there, though, because when we kick off the FY21 projects, we will have exercise directives for each of the projects that goes into literally the step-by-step process of what you need to do in order to access the IRT funds properly, starting with how to input your T3 request, onto how to cut your orders and how to draft your orders and what codes to select, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, more information to follow on that. Next slide, please. Again, these are, I'll turn it over to Staff Sergeant Fleischman here in a second, but these are the standard sort of IRT projects. There are, a lot of engineering, a lot of medical, and a lot of dental projects, but bottom line is any project that combines a community need with mission essential training can potentially become an IRT project. So we sort of make that pitch to you, because if you have a relationship with a government agency or a community partner that might be eligible to get support under IRT, please don't be shy. Contact us, and we will make every effort to provide guidance and potentially turn those opportunities into IRT projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to Staff Sergeant Fleischman to talk a little bit more about training value.
Thank you, sir. Good day, Staff Sergeant Fleischman here, and I'd like to talk to you about the training opportunities and how IRT can benefit your Marine sailors. So first, thanks for joining us. We hope this virtual format is beneficial to you. It is our inaugural virtual conference, so if you do have any feedback, please do not be shy in sending that to us so we can improve it, especially in this time of COVID and virus. We're probably going to be doing a lot more virtual, so however we can make this more effective for you, our guests and customers, the better off. So as he identified, here's the major categories that IRT is broken down into: civil engineering, medical, dental, and other. Other includes things like cybersecurity, civil affairs, public affairs, and then there's your individual support services. So you get into food service, transportation, communication, which is huge. What does this really mean? It means that what are your training priorities? So if you need to train your food service Marines, let us know. We'll attach them to a unit, even if it's not a Marine Corps led exercise. There's nearly 50 applications this year. We're doing about 28 of them. So chances are we can find something. Same thing, electrical, HVAC, utilities, paving, medical, and dental is always maxed out. The easiest way to do this, I'll touch real briefly on this, is that here you get us your METs, whatever you're trying to train to for that year, whatever your commander says are your priorities, and then we'll match them to what training exercises are going. Combine that with the realistic training at little no cost for IRT, and we increase your unit readiness. How that works in real life is that you get us your METs, we take those, we compare it, match it with exercises. We return those results to your command and say, hey, these are the exercises we find. Do any of these work for you? Do these dates work for you? If you say yes, then we jump to the mill app. If you say not sure, we need more information, then we return with that more information, up to and including a funded PESS, pre-exercise site survey, where you can actually send your subject matter experts out and talk to the community partner. We can also do that virtually. We'll facilitate all of that. Then your command makes a decision. You push it up to your MSC. Of course, they have to sign off on it. and then we proceed. So the mill app is the final application, and that's the final step, and that is where we actually secure your money. Put in your money. We'll walk you through that process. So it just takes about an hour or two. All right, let's talk about some FY20 successes. So want to talk about Tropicare. This was a medical, dental, somewhat optometry exercise. The big thing I want to talk about is that these are medical, is one of the major categories. About half of the exercises are medical, but that doesn't mean that it's only medical personnel going out there. So tell you a story about the medical team went out to Tropicare. They brought their dentists, they brought their techs. When we went out to the initial planning conference, because we have 3 planning conferences for all of these exercises, the question was brought up, well, who's going to take care of the administrative side? Who's going to take care of, processing these people in? And initially they said, well, our techs will have to split their time between treating patients and taking care of administrative. Well, we can remedy that by bringing out the administrators. So they increase their numbers, they increase their participation by bringing out their administrators. This freed up their techs to get more MOS time. It also allowed their administrators to get MOS time. So that wasn't on the community application. It wasn't a need that was addressed. It was a need that was discovered as we're out there doing, walking the dog on the process of how to get the training done. So same thing with food service that was done out there. They needed, the Army was in charge of food service, but turned out they needed additional support. So we're able to get additional support. CBRN is another great example. CBRN always needs CBRN training. Obviously gas chamber does a very little training for CBRN. That's a very, very small part of their training. Most of their training is giving classes and providing support to units. So we were able to bring out 4 or 5 CBRN, or scheduled to, since this exercise didn't partake. We were able to bring those out. Not only were they going to train Marines, they were going to train airmen, they were going to train Navy personnel, both green and blue side, and they were going to train Army and Army National Guard. So they were going to get a lot of training. There's about 400 participants in this exercise. So another thing that we were able to add, and this is all in Tropicare, just to show you the breadth of what we can do in one exercise that's above and beyond their requirement to just provide dental exams, right? Is that CALM, this was in Hawaii, the big island of Kauai, which is the northern island, and it has the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. CALM before has always been a problem. 4th Force Reconnaissance offered up their CALM debt. They were going to come out, establish CALM at 4 different locations. One of them including from the COC over the Grand Canyon of the Pacific to the northernmost remote island of the northernmost location of the island. So that was going to be a huge test of their ability. Being a Pacific island, it had a lot of mission capable ramifications. So this was going to be very light, very realistic training for them. So just going through some of the other ones, Camp Carter, the MAW was going to establish a landing pad there by filling in a lake that was going, or a pond that was going to allow them to actually land air assets in there. So they were going to build an actual helipad. There's some other ones there. Southwest Indian Foundation, MLG was going to do that. They were going to have 15 come in there for virtual or vertical construction. Then they found out that they also need electricians, plumbers, and they found out that they could send their Marines for that. That was something that the Marines had always struggled to get MOS time in. So they increased from 15 to 60 as well. So the main takeaway from this is that there is a lot of training available at these exercises, and the training goes far beyond what is initially listed, especially in the support services. So I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention sling loading was coming to Tropicare. They needed to get these boxes and the dental kits and everything from the port to the remote sites. Some of these sites were very remote. We're talking about a 1-lane bridge going to one of the sites at the northern tip of the island. So they were going to use sling loading, which allowed the MAW, active duty MAW, to meet their METs for training. Active duty is becoming more involved in IRT, so a lot of units have identified that active training is one of their requirements. That training with active duty personnel is a high priority for them. So active duty has been, is scheduled to participate and has been participating more and more each year, which gives a great opportunity for integration. Moving on to what we have coming in 21. Many of you are here because you're already involved in these exercises. We have other exercises as well. This is just 8 exercises. We're already up to 14 exercises right now. You'll see some of the same exercises on here. Arctic Care, Camp Carter, different units are participating in them now. Arctic Care is going in Alaska. Tropicare is not on here, but that is going again. So I can already tell you that some of these exercises and some exercises not listed on here have already made requests for COM ability, for food service, for CBURN again, for administrative support, and for just normal logistical supply, transportation, embarkation, LSB support. So all the H&S services, all the supports that you will have, especially if you're a division asset and your trigger pullers are doing something, but your support units may not be, your support Marines may not be, there is a lot of opportunity there. Here's some more opportunities that we talked about. As you see, almost all of them have COM. Almost all of them have food service. Some want extensive utilities work done out there. But this all goes back to this slide, that if we find out what training requirements you need, what you're looking for, we can match it up with a exercise that has that training requirement. Wrapping it all up, we did have 10 to 12 exercises. We're now looking at 14 to 16. All right, this is coming from 54 community partners that have requested assistance. We're expecting more to come in, possibly adding more exercises going out, so the opportunities are expanding. This is all to get you the training that you want for your Marines. So the budget for last year was 30 million. They're expecting at least 30 million. However, it has grown every year. So there's a lot of money. The Marine Corps has usually only taken a couple million of that. So we have a lot of opportunity to grow. Money has not been a problem so far. So when these exercises are going, this is always important. Exercises go February to August. Most of them happen in the May, June, July timeframe during AT, but we have multiple exercises that are duration exercises. Camp Tomasa is a duration exercise. Pima County is a duration exercise. What that means is it's 2-week iterations. 2-week iterations. So they can go out for AT. You can have multiple, partake in multiple iterations. You're not tied into one specific 2-week period. So if any of this sounds interesting, please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know. I'll tell you the key takeaways are that the training that you want, size isn't a factor. We've had 8 Marine sailor debts all the way up to full companies go out. Here's our information to reach us. We're both in the GAL. Staff Sergeant Gabriel Fleischman, myself. Here's my phone number. You can always get a hold of me. Major Andrew Chrestman. Here's his email, his number. Can get a hold of either of us.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Fleischman. And I know we've thrown a lot of information at you, both with respect to the funding and then also hopefully Staff Sergeant Fleischman's comments have gotten you thinking about maybe some more personnel that you have in your units that could possibly jump on some of these projects that you've already rogered up for, or maybe even somebody that has doesn't have anything planned other than home site AT for FY21 that might get more value out of doing an IRT. So please do not hesitate to contact us, and we are happy to help you. And likewise, when we get through the global pandemic, we're happy to take our show on the road and come brief you and provide information on IRT during a drill weekend, during commanders conferences, whatever the case may be. We need to get the word out there. So thanks for your time and attention, and we look forward to working with you in FY21.